Hello, everyone. It's your Liana Samsara back again, Star Sound Speaks. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you about this amazing window that we're in with this upcoming solar eclipse in Aries, March 29th. And we're going to be talking about that in a larger context about how it's just more than just, I mean, honestly, I've never seen anything like this. I think pretty much all the astrologers would agree on that. This is just a stupendous turn of the ages, and this eclipse season is unlike anything I've ever seen in all my years and years of study, over 25 years of study and practice. So I just wanted to share that to start off with. Yes, this is epic. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's Irliana. I practice Western tropical astrology, and what I do is help you connect with your unique cosmic blueprint. And that is to help you live a transformed life. So we know so you can lead your life of joy, purpose, knowing the promise that is spelled out in your chart is truly life-changing. And so that's what I delight in doing. And I also delight in, of course, sharing with you on YouTube. And so if you do like this content, please do like, share, subscribe. And if you want to join my email list, you can just, in the links below, Irliana at starsoundastrology.com. And you can certainly also book a reading. Got lots of great things planned. One thing I do want to say is I'm going to be, before we get started with our talk, I will be doing a astrology course again. I haven't done one in 2 years, and I've had requests, so we're going to be starting that probably next month. And so if you get on the email or like, share, subscribe, you'll get all the alerts. The other thing I want to say is I'm going to give an overview about things that are is specific to this eclipse and the window that it represents, but I just did a very deep dive into this subject last week in a webinar, and you are welcome to, hopefully, if you like this content and you want to learn more, you can go to my website, click on the link. It's a webinar that's about an hour and a half. So what I do is a very, very deep dive into the all of the aspects of what this means for our evolution, but I also talk about there are three things that I talk about. One is those details, and another is a figure from history, which is very, very important because when we look at their chart, it shows us who we need to be to navigate this change of the ages that is upon us with the utmost integrity and mystical potential even. And we do get deep into mysticism on that particular webinar. And I also give the power dates of activation for these eclipses, especially the solar eclipse coming up. It's never just the day it happens. I always say it's not like the Super Bowl. You have times when planets will cross and trigger those points. But I would give two very, very powerful ones for the times ahead, and that's also in the webinar. And lastly, I do a healing meditation at the end in the language of light, and this is to really open and clear us and bring us to the highest velocities of light for this particular timing that we're in, which is phenomenal. All right, so having said that, this particular eclipse, of course, solar is it's the end of our eclipse season for March. This is arguably the most potent month of the entire year with all of the change going on. It's not just eclipse season, but what I want to really focus on today is the fact that the solar eclipse, well, first of all, it's the end of the cycle, right? We had our lunar, March 14th. And now the solar, like bookends, it completes. The lunar was in Virgo, late degree, 23, 24 degrees Virgo. And the solar is in Aries. And it's the final eclipse in the Aries Libra axis. This is a story that has been unfolding in our lives since April of 2023. So that is obviously a long time. And that has given us a great deal of major endings, major beginnings around the areas of self and others, ourselves, who we truly are, the courage to be ourselves, and the courage to walk away from toxic relationships, relationships that drain us, that do not serve us or do not support us in being authentic or living authentic lives. So yes, not an easy thing to given that most of humanity is wired to, we're people pleasers. We have a lot of that going on, and this last 2 years has really called us forward on where have we over accommodated ourselves, where have we been people pleasing, where have we been like a doormat. And so depending on what area of your life these eclipses fall in, depending on the houses, that is where they were getting activated. So for example, if you had it in the area of the fourth house and the 10th house, then your home life and your career life were being very impacted. You might have lost friends in either the career sector, or maybe your reputation might have been eclipsed, a new chapter beginning, something that falls away and then something that starts. And so depending on where that is where the area of transformation occurred. So now, once we get past this, in the fall, we'll just have Pisces and Virgo, solar lunar eclipse, Pisces, Virgo on that axis. But the thing about this one is the very next day, right, on Sunday, the 30th, Neptune will enter Aries for the first time in 164 years. Obviously, that's stupendous. The outer planets always take very long, 14, 15 years in a sign like Neptune. And the fact that it hasn't been in Aries, the last time it was there was 1861, literally right as America got into the Civil War. Now, that's not exactly a very jolly subject, right? But it does speak to Aries, courage, conviction, standing up, and being able to carry on in the face of things that might, difficulty, right? One of the things that Neptune brings, Neptune can be about ideals and mysticism, deep transcendental beliefs, and the desire to live a beautiful, pure life of devotion to the divine, right? And so when you think about, say, Civil War, obviously anything but it's interesting because the darkness that occurred around that time was also a time in that mid 19th century. Neptune was not in Aries for the entire 20th century. We haven't seen it for 164 years. So that takes us back 2 centuries, right, to the 19th century. It wasn't there in the 20th century. It was there just the 19th century as its most recent. Well, one of the things that what it did at that time was the rise of spiritualism. And so a lot of that was driven by the fact that there was this horrific civil war and these clash of ideologies, and people were wanting unity and wanting to move beyond all that identity, wanting peace and upliftment and a transcendental state of being. One thing was that the Industrial Revolution was definitely humming along, and that was, again, bringing the divide of technology with the soul, right, from making life a little more soulless, and of course the war itself. So that drove a lot of people to do things like seances, spiritualism. Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophical movement, those ideas were starting to brew and come together at that time when Neptune entered Aries. It found its fuller flowering 30 years later, but those ideas were coming to the fore. This was a very time of, like I said, the spiritual search in a time when there was a lot of conflict and a lot of sadness and despair, and people trying to find out who they are, knowing they were bigger, their soul knowing they were bigger than just what they saw in the material world. So Neptune and Aries. So that's a major thing that we're seeing here with these eclipses. This solar eclipse is bringing about, we are at this precipice And again, I dive deeply into this in the webinar that I just did, but we are on this precipice of a new direction of who we are, how we identify with ourselves, right? Mars, Aries, right? Aries, the self, the divine self. The lights go out. The sun is blocked in a solar eclipse, right? The moon passes in front of the sun, blocks it out. And to me, when you think about these the solar eclipse, if you can picture, you've seen a picture, right? This big black ball with a little rim of white around it. So it's like this giant iris that says, hey, look at this, look carefully. There's something that's right in front of you, but you can't see it. So eclipses conceal and then they reveal. So something wants to be revealed. The divine is saying, you with this particular solar eclipse, this is the final chapter in, like I said earlier, the Aries Libra cycle. Who am I relative to others? And this is saying, look, okay, this who you think you are is getting rewritten. It's time to take a new direction, a direction of compassion, a direction of leading with your gut, a direction of feeling, of care. What do you care about? What do you really care about? Not what you think you're expected to care about or what society tells you. What it's saying is there's this new horizon that is beckoning. In the chart of Washington, D.C., it's actually in the first house, which is the house of the self. So in the United States, it's an entirely new image. And I would say too, with Mars, the lower expression of Mars is the ego, the competitor, the one who just wants to angrily react. And solar eclipses often bring the downfall of leaders. And it could be people passing away or getting, voted out of office or some such thing, succession. And so we could very well see this with world leaders. It's just goes with the design of eclipses, right? Someone in power, solar, is a ruler, a king or a monarch or a leader, right? Prime minister, president, whatever. They get eclipsed. Their power, right, is there's a whole new reset button. And I would say that in this case of our personal evolution, with a solar eclipse in Aries, we are seeing, the words that's coming to me is, and especially with the ruler, Mars is the ruler of this eclipse. So Mars is in the sign of Cancer. And that is where Mars is not known. It's not where he wants to be. That is what's considered in fall. Like he loves being in Capricorn and Aries, in charge, achieving, right, male energy, kind of like very, very intense and focused and driven and at all costs, right? Well, especially Mars in Capricorn, it's like I will achieve and I will get to the top and I don't care if I have to knock somebody down. But Mars in Cancer is the exact opposite. So Mars is considered in its fall in Cancer, according to the ancient astrologers, right? These are things called essential dignities. There's something in their exaltation, something in their fall. So certain planets do better in certain signs than other planets or other signs. Mars in Cancer, let me tell you, these things can be blessings. And I absolutely know this from the core of my being. This is the best thing for us. Eclipses will always bring what is best for our evolution. Eckhart Tolle said it beautifully. I don't remember the exact words, but something like, life will always give you exactly the experience that you need to evolve your consciousness. Well, we could say that as for eclipses. Eclipses can be very destabilizing. There's sometimes, as my teacher used to say, things move forward, often with a lurch, right? We're out of space-time, as you probably have been feeling, if you're watching this video during the time of the eclipse, we're looking back, middle of March to the end of March, very wonky time, very, a lot of chaos, a lot of shifting and changing, a lot of, could be feeling sad, letting go of things, heavy dream state, because Mercury is definitely a part of this eclipse, very close to the sun. And so there's a lot of tumultuous events and things, very destabilizing, but the divine, like Eckhart says, will always bring us, it will bring us to a place that we need to be. And it may be uncomfortable. We may have had to give up. It typically involves giving up a comfort zone. Mars not in the locker room, right? Mars is in the sign of Cancer. This is the healer, the nurturer. So we're taking on roles of nurturing. It's the part of our brain that cares, the compassionate, the neocortex. And this is the part of our brain that is coming online, the mammalian brain, right? The brain, the part of us that cares, that wants to nurture and protect ourselves, others, looking out for others instead of trampling on them to get ahead. We're rewriting enormous social consciousness. Saturn in the late Pisces, right? And right next to that North Node, there are these fated dissolution of old conditioned beliefs about what we're supposed to believe, how we're supposed to believe it, who and what do we believe, right? So this is a huge reset. I want to say too that it's giving us an opportunity via some very interesting avenues to say, you have no clue. You think you know who you are and what you're capable of, but let me tell you, we have no clue. And the universe is saying, good, you know what? Let's do a solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Pisces. And we're going to show you, it's going to reveal something about yourself and your ability to persevere and carry on. And to be the hero. Aries, Mars and Aries is the hero, the hero's journey that starts out on a mission. And of course, we, as in every good hero story, read Joseph Campbell, right? The hero's journey runs into some problems, but triumphs in the end. But there is that sense of duty that one is, we are being called to do things that maybe we realize we had no idea, like, I didn't know I signed up for this. It's like, oh boy. But we're being called to serve and to make sacrifices that move beyond ourselves of me, and what I want, but what is important for us to be an assistance to others, and the sacrifice and the devotion and the discipline it takes to move and reach these powers. It does mean us giving up the notions of who we thought we were. But I will say, we can be very surprised at what we will find. It will really astound us if we keep our heart in the right place and our heads calm, right? Heart over head, not head over heart, right? Reverse. We are set up to see some pretty outrageous things. I always say to people, watch what happens during an eclipse or eclipse season. Watch the headlines, because the collective is always showing us the story. It occurs collectively. My cat is occurring. No, what did he get? Okay, I got. Hold on a second. I gotta help this cat. Be right back. Oh gosh, where was I? I know I was talking about so many things. I was waiting for my cat to finish, and all these ideas kept spinning through my head. All right, I'll try to get to all of them. All right, so I was saying about how I know I was mentioning about the solar eclipse in Aries, and it can be the fall of a leader in the collective. In mundane astrology, it typically refers to that. But here's the thing. It's very easy, especially with all the chaos going on in the world right now, and various people in government, ours, and first and foremost, as well as many around the planet that have, just these very deeply, intensely painful, chaotic situations. And it would be very easy when somebody falls to just, like, they say, don't kick somebody when they're down. The ego is being burned off. This is what the wonderful Austin Coppock at the Astrology podcast. Shout out to the Astrology podcast, brilliant Chris Brennan and Austin Coppock. Last year, Austin said something that it really registered for me, and I want to share this with you. I may have shared it before, but for those of you new to the channel, I haven't seen me in a while too, because I took a year off, needed to do that. But he talked about this was talk about how much has happened in a year. We had Trump running for president against Joe Biden. Remember those days, right? So much happened. And Bobby Kennedy was the independent candidate, right? So it was like, yeah, how much can change in a year? But I remember at the time it was actually no, was Bobby not quite independent yet, I think. But anyway, it was just basically Joe Biden, Donald Trump. And Austin said, wow, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, two old white men. And he said, like we talk about, these are, of course, the last throes of Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, late degrees, right? The old guard, trying to hang on, right? And he mentioned the term extinction burst. Extinction burst is a term in astronomy, and it refers to when a star is getting ready to die, it triples down in size, right? It gets as brighter than you've ever seen it before, and then it's done. And I thought, that's very similar, and that's a process of nature. Because if you've ever been around somebody who's dying, like you say, you see them in hospice, and you see them and they're hanging on, they're very weak, and all of a sudden one day they just get really like full of life, and you think, oh my God, they've licked the cancer, they're gonna get better. But the next day, they're done, right? That's it. So that's extinction burst, this kind of life, kind of the last final hurrah. So I'm inviting everybody to try that on. That if you're very concerned or wondering or scared about what is happening in the world right now, just know that collectively the ego is being burned off. It's extinction burst. Another thing that Eckhart Tolle said I think it was in A New Earth, he said, as the ego as the ego expresses itself, it also implodes. As it's doing its thing, exploding, it's actually imploding. It's caving in on itself. And that is something that I see astrologically that's happening now very clearly. This, especially with Mars being in the sign of Cancer, the ruler of this solar eclipse, being in the sign of Cancer, best thing it could ever be for Mars, right? Cool it down, feel into what we're doing, have compassion. This is a part of nature. These are parts of the cycles of life. The things rise and then they fall. And to just be even and have the heart of Divine Mother and just walk calmly and peacefully as much as we can. We have to keep coming back to that place, as scary and upsetting as it may be, where we have we might have been fired from our job, or as a federal worker, for example, or just something very shocking happens to us. We lose a loved one. Eclipse seasons, like I said, are very unstable. And so when these things happen, it's very easy to be thrown off course, but to stay that course, being responsive and not reactive, that is the key here, to respond with compassion in times like this. As a matter of fact, speaking of compassion, two things. One is that if you recall the lunar eclipse being in Virgo, it was a full moon, of course. Lunar eclipses are always full moons. It was a full moon in the sign of Virgo, and in the Hindu tradition, the Purnima, the full moon in Virgo, there's a festival called Holi, Holi, just like very similar to the English word holy, right? And that is a festival of purification, of it's the blossoming of, it's spring in India, right? So it's the blossoming of love, the arrival of spring, new beginnings, love, the triumph of good over evil. This is what it typically points to. Um, and I also want to say that Mother Ganga, which the Ganges River, this from the Sanskrit Ganga, which means flow, the flow, it's the flow of life, it's purification. Everything Virgo is all about purification, right? Hygiene, purification, cleanliness. You ever know a Virgo? Well, don't look at their room, but shh, don't tell them. Very interesting juxtaposition. But anyway, cleanliness not. Purification and forgiveness are the hallmarks of Goddess Ganga. And so when you think about, in the Ganges, it's a very holy river. People bury their dead in the Ganges. They put their ashes there. People bathing in the Ganges, right, to create moksha or liberation, right? These are the cleansing holy waters. So there could literally be dead bodies, but nobody ever gets sick in the Ganges. So you talk about the Pisces Virgo eclipse axis, right? The logical mind doesn't make sense. It's a dead body. No, no, we're in another dimension now. These eclipses are calling us into this mystical velocity. Mystical velocity. This is not your grandfather's automobile, Oldsmobile. This is not your right? We're in a different game now. And it's leaning more and more. The invitation as we move deeper into these Pisces Virgo eclipses in the fall and into next year is this invitation to go into these deep mystical places, to trust the divine, and to let go, ease the logical mind. We need our discernment. We can't be like la la, but we also we want to incorporate the best of both worlds, but to be able to move in with faith and to say, there are things that are hidden from us that we don't realize. And if we just trust the divine, the divine's going to take us there. And it will astound us. What we discover will astound us. So by being responsive and not reactive to all these changes going on in the world, if and when or as leaders fall and as parts of our lives fall, right, that area of our life where the eclipse falls is where there's going to be this reset. And to just be responsive, to respond to it with compassion, to not react or to witness how fast we want to react. We want to squirm away. We want to run away impulsively with anger. These are low expressions of Mars, of the unindividuated self would be this reactive self, an angry self, and to just do our very best to keep cultivating an awareness, to be responsive, not reactive. That's Mars and Cancer, right? What do we really care about? How can we put our emotions and how can we allow our feelings without being caught in them, without hanging on to the past? We could release, the negative side of Cancer is like, oh, I'm hanging on to the past and I don't want to let go, or I don't want to let go of my children. I don't want to let go of my mother. I don't want to let go of my family. I don't want to let go of my kids. It's a lot, right? But knowing these things, knowing the archetypes allows us to navigate powerfully. There is a great YouTube video. I'm going to link it below. And it was a darshan, which is a teaching, spiritual teaching, by Ram Dass. And it's called How to Be Responsive, Not Reactive. It's an incredible, I don't know, hour or so long. He's funny. He's just, anybody spiritual, man. If you're not funny, you're not spiritual. I'm sorry. We can't be serious all the time. Light, as my teacher used to say, humor is the foundation of the spiritual path. And Ram Dass was great with that. So you will get enlightened. You will listen to him. He was a fully self-realized master whose guru was Neem Karoli Baba of India. And the name of the video, How to Be Responsive, Not Reactive. What calls to me is that that's exactly the message. This is what speaks to us at this time. It's such a timely topic. And there is I want to say a scene. No, I'm writing a screenplay. It's a scene. There's the part of he tells a story. I'm not going to give you the whole thing here, but he tells a story about an Aikido master. And he's telling a story about a man who witnessed Aikido in action, Aikido martial art. And I'll just say there's a few words here about that. As students of Aikido, we were not allowed to fight. So think about Mars and Cancer. We were not allowed to fight. Aikido, as my teacher said again and again, is the art of reconciliation. Whoever has the mind to fight has broken his connection with the universe. I got chills when I said that. If you try to dominate people, you are already defeated. Good luck, Greenland. Good luck, trying to take over another country, whoever you may be, So the people of Greenland, the people of Panama, the people of Ukraine, these are areas in the world, of course, that are very big tension. Gaza, all those areas, very big tension points. If we can just bring our hearts and our compassion and our prayers to these areas and pray for the people who are in these leaders who are in charge of making these huge decisions with karmic implications for generations. You think about how big this is, and then we're all participants in it. We don't get to sit around. Pluto and Aquarius is like, no, dude, we don't get to sit around and observe anymore. The observation era is another hallmark of this eclipse turning point. The observation is over, where we're in the background and we're just meditating on things. It's like, no, we are participants. We're not observers. So this says here, if you try to dominate people, you are already defeated. We study how to resolve conflict, not how to start it. The man who's telling this story was training in Aikido, and he had his muscles and, the physical training. And, he thought that's what Aikido is about. But the story, which you absolutely will love, you will never forget the story. Listen to the YouTube video, you'll hear it. But this man had wanted to do with fighting, physical fighting, there was a scene he had witnessed, and it had been accomplished with love. He said, I had just seen Aikido in combat. So doing things with love, that's the real warrior, the spiritual warrior. Another aspect of the spiritual warrior is the fact that the next day, right after the eclipse, we got Neptune going to Aries, right? Talk about spiritual warrior, holy moly. We're getting out of the ashram age of where we sat in meditation and where all for centuries monasteries held secrets, esoteric secrets, and it's like they had to. It was appropriate. But now this is an age where we're bringing out these very sacred, esoteric, mystical scriptures and documents and documentations, and to move out into the world with these. And this is an incredibly powerful time because this is stuff we haven't seen in like a long time. One thing too to also be aware of is Saturn, of course, is going to catch up. Saturn is within a degree or so of Neptune right now, a few degrees. And then it'll get even closer, and they'll travel. Saturn will finally, Memorial Day weekend in the USA, Saturn will join Aries. Saturn will join Neptune in Aries. Saturn and Neptune conjunct. So very much in next month, they'll be within a degree. They'll be both in the same sign of Aries for the entire summer. So if 1967 was when Saturn was in Pisces into Aries, and that was called the summer of love. I actually remember that. Okay, I was very young, but it was, yeah, the summer of love. And this was a time when people were demonstrating their love and their care. They didn't want to see the carnage in Vietnam. They were standing up to say, no, we're not going here. And so this whole thing, the summer of love. So this summer, I'm calling this, let's see. Yeah, it could be the summer of love, the summer of, well, what I'm calling Neptune and Aries and Saturn along for the ride for this first year, actually through 2028. So what's that, 3 years? We have these next 3 years, Saturn and Neptune very close to each other. You talk about spiritual warrior and bring it. Bring it, like we be it and embody it and go out there with it. So this is a really deep time. These next 3 years are like, whoa, right? With Saturn. Now Saturn will eventually moves way faster than Neptune. So Saturn's going to go further away. But the resonance with Neptune is going to be really profound this year, especially next year when it pops out. Again, I get into more of that in the webinar I was telling you about. So, but just to suffice it to say that this timing is a very profound timing. Saturn and Neptune get together every 36 years. You're like, okay, Juliana, well, if it's every 36 years, it's not that big a deal. Well, but it's Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And that hasn't been seen since, I think it's 1703 in Aries. But Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries is like, I don't know. I kept spinning my astrological software back and back and back and back, and I couldn't find it. It's like 0 Aries, maybe hundreds and hundreds of years or 1,000 years. 0 Aries is the world point. That's where things begin. Life begins. So we are seeing this is going to be an era in which we don't even realize how powerful we are when we are called into action, when the rubber meets the road and we got to show up. The divine has our back. We may be terrified or frightened or wondering, can I do this? Do I have the muscle to persevere in the face of so much chaos? Do I have the muscle to persevere in the face of so much suffering? What's it going to take to stay calm and, as Ram Dass said, how to be responsive, not reactive in the face of what's it going to take? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. This is okay. If it's not summer of love, I mean, we could call it that too, of course. Hey, most of you guys listening, you weren't born yet. Okay. I'm telling you, it was an outrageous time. It was an outrageous time. I remember actually it was 1966. I had a mini skirt and it was psychedelic. It was really cool. It was black and white checks, but it weren't square, like plain little geometric checks. It was like psychedelic. So they were all like warpy. It was really cool. It was a mini skirt and I had white go-go boots. They had real go-go boots. They used to call them banana boots. And they were like these little calf size and they were white leather and they had a pointy toe and a flat heel. And they were so cool. Oh, and by the way, the mini skirt, it wasn't like those little kid dresses with the high waist, like the little 1950s dress. It was this hip slinging, hip hugging mini skirt, the black and white. It was just, I'm telling you, I wish I had it. So that is what I remember that was my Saturn and Pisces experience, my psychedelic mini skirt. But I will tell you, this is going to be a summer of love. Of course, I'm going to spend more time talking about this. We're going to all journey on this boat together. You want on? Yeah, this is one boat you want to be on. It's a very crazy, chaotic year coming up, but we come back to love and devotion. And as a matter of fact, that's what I'm calling this Neptune into Aries. Devotion in motion. Neptune is devotion. Aries, let's move. Let's go out there. Let's do it, right? Don't you quit your yakking and just get out there. Move forward and don't stop. It's like when I think about the other morning, I woke up and I thought about my Uncle Bob. He was in D-Day. He passed away at the age of 96. Amazing man. And my mother used to tell, I just remember my mother telling us stories about him that he said that, they had prepared for this moment and he came up on the beaches and he said, you're in the water and you just got to walk. You got to move. You got to move. There is no standing around. You have no choice. You have to move forward. And of course, your life's in danger. People are, his buddies were like dying, left and right, and he crawling up the hill, right? And you didn't know if the next bullet would have your name on it, is how he put it. And it was just, I don't know, there's something when you're called into that place, talk about huge sacrifice, and there is this blind faith that just you have to do it. That was Saturn in Aries, was also, in early 1940s. So it happened during World War II, right? Civil War, World War II. So this valor, the warrior and the valor it takes and the courage to keep going in the face of. And there were very miraculous stories. I remember there's this medal in Catholicism called the Miraculous Medal, and it's a little picture of Mother Mary. And my mom used to tell me stories that there were soldiers whose lives were saved because this bullet, they were wearing the miraculous medal, and the bullet hit the metal and it deflected. Now that in the law of physics, you would think it would still hit them or hurt them, but they were spared. Their life was spared because the metal took the bullet. So again, this is the idea of the divine has our back. There are things that are existing outside the laws of physics that we're going to see that are going to assist us as we go forward at this very intense time. Last thing I want to say is, you have to remember too, we got Saturn in Pisces for this, right? It's not going to get there till Memorial Day weekend. Saturn in Pisces is, a lot of secrets about government and about authority figures and things secrets coming to the surface. Of course, we've been seeing this all over the place with the new administration in the United States. Very much, a lot of secrets, if this whole signal thing was just one example. But the point I want to make is Saturn also rules architecture. And so one of the most amazing headlines that has emerged during this eclipse season is the fact that this pyramid of Khufra, I think that's how you say it, Khufra, it's the second largest of the Giza pyramids. And these Italian researchers discovered, using special radar, underneath the pyramid are these enormous pillars. So this is what they've claimed. They have been studying this for years with research. They found similar discoveries with the Great Pyramid of Giza in 2022. And now this one is for the not temple, the pyramid of Khufra. And what they have found is that these huge pillars wrapped with, it looks almost like spirals, maybe it's a spiral staircase, I don't know. They found this in their imaging, and they go down about half a mile deep into the sands of Giza, throwing open a whole new world you talk about a paradigm shift. Hello, Pluto and Aquarius, worlds that you didn't know existed, been sitting there all along, haven't been discovered. We're going to see even more of this over the summer. Once we get Uranus into Gemini, making that exact trine with Pluto, holy moly, this is going to blow the lid off of, for quote, forbidden or taboo knowledge, things that had been separated from the masses because the powers that be didn't want people knowing. This is a very big archetype right now. But how exciting, what an exciting time this is. But the fact that this is all happening, and of course there are people saying, oh, this is a bunch of BS, this isn't true. Well, they said that about Galileo and Copernicus, you're full of it. No, the Earth doesn't move around the sun moves around the Earth. It's like, what the, new radical ideas are always, what is that saying? First things are debated and then they're attacked and then they're finally accepted. But the fact is, I feel there's a lot of truth to this, especially knowing the astrology, Saturn in Pisces, late degrees, part of this big eclipse message, very much so. Edgar Cayce, who I have mentioned in the past, his chart is being activated for these Pisces Virgo eclipses. And you'll see more of that. And one of the things he talked about was the Hall of Records in Atlantis being revisited, or Atlantis rising, and also the paw of the Sphinx holding hidden knowledge and records that were kept that would come up at a certain time. And here we are, right? So the fact that all of these things together are pointing to knowledge about ourselves and how we have the world as we have accepted it, like, oh, the pyramids were only for the king's burial, or whatever. But now there are these other possibilities that are being opened. Like, what are those deep pillars and what were they used for? It's like some kind of amazing sonar platform or something. Knowing that the star Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens, is exactly aligned with Orion's belt and all is aligned with the pyramids. So they of course had major astrological knowledge. Astronomy and astrology were the same subject. So there we have it. Again, this outrageous revealing of secret architecture. Nothing says secret architecture like Saturn in Pisces. So you got secret architecture, secrets about reality and our structure of reality that have to do with other dimensions or other areas of existence. And also the flip side is the attempt to suppress or to confuse people, to say, oh, that's not true. Don't look over there. Keep on moving, folks. Nothing to see. There's always blowback from the guy who's the head of antiquities there. I forget his name. He's this Egyptian guy. He's been there forever. And every time there's this level of radically new understandings, they're always poo-pooing it. So it's very interesting to see what will happen, because again, eclipses are always that, turning point. There's a new chapter that's evolving in this story. And with Saturn in Pisces, about to go into Aries, joining Neptune, and the eclipses, Venus, Mercury, the sun, the North Node, all traveling back and forth over that point. It's outrageous. That's why the name of that webinar, I called it Standing at the Stargate, and I explain exactly what that is. So if you are interested, please, by all means, I'm very grateful for the support of my work, and I think you will enjoy it. Plus, you get healing. So who can argue? I just want to say, when you think about all the things that we're capable of in there's a word in Sanskrit called siddhis, and these are powers, mystical powers that are really part of that the potential to be there. It exists in all of us. And so with cultivation and devotion and discipline, the idea being that these things can be called forth if we so choose. It may not always be everybody's lifetime to do that, clearly. However, these things give us great hope for the future of humanity. I think one of my favorite, maybe the most favorite one is the Bible story of the loaves and the fishes. When Jesus fed all those people, they're like, how are we going to feed those people? And they had plenty of loaves and fishes left over for these hordes of people that he was giving his darshans on Galilee, right? And everybody was hungry. It was lunchtime, right? Everybody got fed from this one little basket, right? Defying the logical mind. I don't know how that happened, right? But there is a siddhis that allows that. And there, by the way, Ram Dass's guru, Neem Karoli Baba, same thing. He did those things. People witnessed it. You can listen on YouTube, any of the Neem Karoli Baba. Many people including Ram Dass, but others too, disciples of Neema Karoli Baba, talked about how they witnessed him doing that, feeding like whole households of people that unexpectedly showed up, bigger numbers, and they were fed, as well as many, many other siddhis demonstrations of siddhis that, they witnessed. So yes, we are in very exciting times. You think you know who you are, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. And that's what me, the astrologer, that's what us astrologers are here to do, is to open doors and show you mystical potentials that are, at least, I'll just speak for myself. This is what I'm here for. This is what I love. I love to share this. I love to show people, where is that magic? Where's that magic? It's there. It's in your chart. It's in the chart, it's the mundane astrology. What do we look at when we see this world of chaos? Not doing spiritual bypass. We know darn well we have to have our head on and be real about things. Saturn in Pisces is like, get real and stop deluding yourself. So there's this fine line. You don't want to delude yourself, but you also don't want to shut down the mystical potentials of what we're here to do, and of our mystical potentials. So it's all available to us. All right, I think that's all for now. I hope this has been useful to you and for you. And I will definitely see you next time. And just want to wish everybody a wonderful eclipse season. Hang in there. Give it a couple of weeks before you make any major decisions. I would recommend that. I always do, especially because Mercury and Venus are both retrograde. So we're revamping our relationships to ourselves and others, our value of who are we worth, our financial worth, our social worth, Mercury too, how we think, our system of thinking and perception is being rewired. So it's all getting rewritten. This is a very, very powerful time. And the effects of this eclipse season will resonate out for years. It will resonate for years. We may not be present to it all happening in the moment, but when we look back, we will say, wow, March 2025. Wow. So, okay, all for now. Thank you so much for listening. Much love to all of you. Namaste. This is Irliana Samsara, Star Sound Speaks, starsoundastrology.com. Have a great one.